Now, you are here today because you're interested in buying a home. And since we are currently in historically unbelievable times regarding the affordability of housing, you might be looking into other options for owning property. So if you've ever thought, you know what, there might be an easier way if I owned an Airbnb or another short-term rental property just so I can own something and maybe make a little cash at the same time, we're going to check that out. Play the music.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
What is up, my How to Buy a Homies? I am David Sidoni, your host for the How to Buy a Home podcast, and I need you to be honest with me if you're a regular listener to the show. Do you have a little dance that you do to the theme music I play at the top? Now, seriously, I'm not judging. In fact, I am encouraging that because being able to afford buying a home in 2025 is getting kind of brutal, so a little dancing might be good for your soul. In fact, I'll tell you what, if you send me a video of yourself dancing along to the theme song, I will personally give you a shout out on the show, and I will also throw in a free home buying consultation with me personally. And I'm going to show you the secrets of how you can buy a home that makes you money, and it costs only 1/3 the price of homes in your market. You see how preposterous that sounds? Yet every single day since the market has gotten less affordable for first-time homebuyers, I see or hear or read or get asked by people, "Hey, David, since buying a home is so unaffordable where I live, I was thinking maybe I should buy an Airbnb somewhere else that's more affordable so that I can finally own something." All right, now look, I'm on your side. I mean, let me say, to those of you that are thinking that you'd at least rather own something, and so you started looking into Airbnb, I'm not getting snarky with you. Really, I applaud you. In tough times, it's the people who think outside the box that most often find the valuable solution. So good for you for looking into any options to start owning. And I'm not going to say that it's a bad idea, because the idea of wanting to own property as soon as you can, that's a very wise decision. But here's what's going on with the short-term rentals. The gold rush of making money on a VRBO or an Airbnb, it is over. And in fact, many current short-term rental property owners are about to realize that they thought they had a fantasy golden goose and it's losing its feathers and turning into a turkey super quick. Today, I'm going to tell you about some seismic changes that happened just in 2025 in the short-term rental game and how it drastically changes the profitability, not just for those properties and owners of those properties today, but potentially some big-time losses in the future. So when it comes to first-time buyers getting a short-term rental first before they actually own their own property they live in, I have never subscribed to owning investments like that if you're still renting. Because if you haven't set up your own rent replacement strategy in the form of owning your own primary residence, there's a little, my friend, math. That buddy of mine, math. Here's how it works. If you only have $30,000 to put down on a home, and people have asked me this all the time, and they say, hey, in my area, 30 grand isn't enough to buy a starter home in my area. So here's what I'm thinking. What if I use that money to buy a rental property first, someplace else where homes are 50% less than what they are here, and then I can make a few $100 a month? Well, here's what happens then. Well, sure, you make it a few $100 a month and you own a piece of property, but now you have to save up that 20, 30, 40 grand again. Well, no, you said it was more than 30. You'd have to save up 50 grand, but you've already lost 30 grand that's sitting in a home that's only making you a couple $100 a month. So the math was already there, but now it's getting worse because in 2025, Airbnb has seriously dropped the hammer on the host fees and expectations. They've changed the rules big time, and they've made it impossible for the casual investor to see profits in owning a property like this for years. And even then, those long-term results, the safe profits that are some of the big selling points of buying something like this, even those are in major jeopardy. So I'm bringing this up today because I've been seeing a lot of people talk about this for a long time. Back in 2021, and even earlier than that, there were a bunch of investment pros, YouTubers, and other property purchasing experts that were dishing out all kinds of programs, systems, techniques, all on how to make money as a short-term rental owner. And a lot of people out there dove in for what they saw as easy money. So that means that right now, most major short-term rental markets where the Airbnb and the VRBOs are, they are completely saturated. They have way more listings than the occupants need. And with everyone fighting for the inventory, these rule changes on top of that, they've made it even more difficult to succeed without a deep understanding of the game. So it's changed. Right now, short-term rentals, seasoned real estate investors, and professionals dominate this market. The side hustle days are over. In 2025, we've got increased competition, a new higher level of guest expectation, tighter regulations, rising operational costs, differences in the way people vacation, and new rules have totally changed the game. So before I get into the rules, let me talk about something that isn't a rule change this year, but it's a shift that Airbnb owners and hosts have been complaining about. It's those shifting travel habits, with seasonal dips getting deeper and longer. And the booking windows, they're getting a lot shorter. In some markets, the average daily rates, or what they call their ADRs, they're starting to flatten. And traveler behavior and expectations, that has changed in a huge way. Guests now expect a ton more from Airbnb than they did a few years ago. They're looking for flexible stays, full kitchens, fast Wi-Fi, and outdoor space. And in some areas, remote workers and families booking much longer stays, they're driving demand a lot more than the quick weekend getaways. And that's where you can make your fast bucks. And I'm sure you've heard about the bad rap that Airbnbs get for party renting. Thanks to, music festivals and other things that bring people to town, that they rent something and trash the place, the companies like Airbnb had to increase their restrictions and the fees so they can cover their own ass in the case of liability. So the bottom line is, it's not for casual investors anymore. These short-term rental companies, they are catering to the pros. And here's the new 2025 hosting policies that Airbnb rolled out that have completely changed the game and tightened up any chance for profits for the hosts. Okay, first up, there are mandatory fees that have to be declared in Airbnb. So all the fees like pet fees, resort fees, taxes, cleaning charges, they have to be included in the Airbnb pricing fields, which means they're visible to the guest at the time of booking, which cuts into the flexibility and it really hurts the perceived value, especially when people are looking at the full number as a complete total and then they compare that to a hotel stay. Second rule change is a big change on the security deposits and waivers. Airbnb has made it nearly impossible to collect security deposits directly unless you're using an Airbnb-approved management account. These property management systems you now have to go through, so it takes away a bunch of the ease that hosts were having with their guests. And then the third rule made that even harder. There are some new, very strict restrictions on platform communication and requests for reviews. One of the biggest shocks in this whole rollout of these rules for 2025, it's the ban on collecting any guest information. You cannot ask the guest directly for emails, phone numbers. You can't offer direct bookings. It actually limits how the host interacts with the guests, and that potentially hinders direct booking strategies. It also kills if you're trying to keep a database of people for repeat business who just want to quickly touch base with you again, book the place, and move on. Now, this is all for the protection of the guest, but it makes it a lot harder to be a host. Airbnb ain't playing. They have an enhanced AI monitoring system now. Every message that goes through Airbnb, it's scanned by AI looking for the prohibited content, including email addresses, phone numbers, quote unquote, book direct language, anything about that, any payment requests outside the platform, and any links to other websites or other platforms all gets flagged by AI. Another big change that's taken a bite out of the host's pocketbooks are the changes to the reservations. First, they have to be handled only through the Airbnb platform. And then they have a limited cancellation policy that's being introduced. This offers a full refund up to 14 days before check-in and a 50% refund if you're between 7 and 14 days. Great for the guests, bad for the hosts. The fifth rule that's coming out is unlimited host liability for guest chargebacks. What that means is that the hosts, they might face financial losses months and months after a stay if a guest disputes a charge. Yeah, it doesn't get fixed right away, and you're out that money until that whole dispute is taken care of. And the last thing isn't necessarily a rule change for 2025, but this is the entire basis of how, unless you are a professional and you understand how all this works, and most importantly, you've got some money to burn, and this isn't your one and only investment, there is a huge red flag when you're dealing with Airbnbs. Now, I saw this start to happen back in Anaheim, California in 2016. The biggest thing that Airbnb hosts and owners need to be aware of is city and government regulations on short-term rentals. Back in 2016, I went to an Anaheim City Council meeting. A bunch of the hotels had their representatives screaming at the city council, telling them, hey, there's a Anaheim 15% transient occupancy tax, and that gets charged to us, and then we pay the city for every single room. But if you're just letting private citizens rent their homes, you're not getting the money. And in fact, if they rent the home and they put 6, 8, 10 people in there, we may have had 2, 3, or 4 rooms. So that's 15% times the multiple rooms. This is back in 2016, and no one really understood what this was doing and where it was going. But I can tell you this, I sat front row and watched a battle. The tourist dollar war in Anaheim. It waged for several years. At some points, there were complete restrictions, and then there were semi-bans, and then there were full bans, and they're still arguing about it to this day. The biggest problem with buying a property where you're running the numbers based just on a short-term rental plan is the local regulations can change at any time. Licensing, taxes, all that stuff. It's not set in stone. In fact, it's set in jello. And if the government or the city or the county or the council realizes that they're not making money, they're going to go ahead and either charge you or change the rules and make it not a thing anymore. So what that means is these are not for the faint of heart. I mean, if you're a cash investor, cool, you can make that work. But if you need the short-term rental income to cover the mortgage on your investment, what happens when the regulations change? And by the way, it's happening more and more every year. We're looking at changes in taxes, permitting processes, licensing fees, enforcement trends. All of that can affect the profitability and even the affordability of just owning a short-term rental. And you know who changes all of the local laws? The homeowners, the people in the community. Do you know why? They're the voters. And I read a great article. Here's what they think about. In a 2025 survey of American homeowners, only 40% say Airbnbs make good neighbors, and just 30% believe that the guests care about the communities of the Airbnbs. Here's what the neighbors are most stressed out about living nearby an Airbnb. 75% said noisy guests, 67% said parties, 59% said safety issues, 56% said traffic and parking issues, and 54% said potential property damage. Angry neighbors, just like those hotel representatives, they go to city council meetings too, and they're a lot more obnoxious than the hotel owners. And everyone in the city council knows that that large group of people is a large group of votes. Here's some more data to chew on about how real homeowners feel about Airbnbs. 55% say that they would rather live next door to their in-laws than an Airbnb. And this one's crazy. 30% of them say that living next door to an ex would be better than living next door to an Airbnb. 63% say that they would prefer living next to a traditional rental home, not a short-term rental home. And 60% of Americans say that a nearby Airbnb is a home buying red flag. 28% of home buyers said that they would offer less on that home, and 32% said they wouldn't even make an offer at all. So here's another thing about Airbnbs and how they affect the entire housing market. Homeowners have heard how the perception of Airbnbs lowers their values, and they are pissed. Homeowners treat their home values like precious treasure, and they guard it with their votes, their propositions, and their community activism. Right now, about half of all Americans, 49%, they want Airbnbs banned in residential areas. 83% of Americans want Airbnbs to follow the same rules as hotels. 82% support requiring a business license for any Airbnb. 78% say that guests should get background checks, and 71% say that they think the host should have to notify the neighbors when guests are coming in and out. So my How to Buy a Homies, why am I telling you all this? Well, I want you to know this and understand that this is just a brief summary of the changes and how everything works to host an Airbnb. I've been consulting against owning an Airbnb before you own your first home for over a decade. And I could go super deep into the math, but that would be a really long episode. So let me sum it up real quickly right here. I was kind of shocked when I saw everybody talking about this. Think about it. If buying a real estate investment with a very low down payment was an easy side hustle way to take, $25,000, $30,000 and make a few $100 a month off of it in something that's going to gain money forever, well, cool. But wait a minute, wouldn't you be competing with investors, maybe thousands of them, who had $25,000 to $50,000 thousands of times over and can do it in multiple different places, not just the single property like all these side hustle people are doing? Oh, wait a minute. That did happen. Yeah, Wall Street hedge funds have been eating up single-family rental homes like candy since 2008, buying them in bulk and renting them to people like you who feel trapped in the new economy in the housing market. So if you're trying to play this game, that's your competition. The best way for a casual investor to make money with a piece of real estate is a buy and hold strategy and make money when the home appreciates and gets some equity. And because the rules and regulations from the local government can change anytime, that tactic is in serious jeopardy for short-term rental investors. If you've penciled it out and you need that short-term higher rental rates to stay afloat to cover your mortgage, well, suddenly your city, your county, your region can change everything for you. Now you're underwater and you can't even afford the house. So what I've been telling people is long-term rentals, they make way more sense for the casual investor. And even then, my little friend called math can always show you that you lose significantly more money buying an investment property before you actually stop renting yourself and start using a primary residence as the foundation for your financial future. So if you're looking for more tips on how to buy your own first home, start building your wealth, and get rid of that damn rent payment, there's a ton in the podcast library. Now, one quick note today before I go. I've been doing this podcast for over 6 years now. And, I realize that I don't spend a lot of time saying thank you to the listeners because the neat thing about the show is, we don't have listeners that have been here for 6 years. I actually pray that none of you have been listening since the beginning. So we don't have this community of people that's growing all the time. It's cyclical. It's got turnover. People come in and out. As an educational platform, we've got an end date. So there's no longevity in the community. So for those of you that are here right now, I just want to say thank you for listening. And I hope that you're getting some clarity and encouragement. And if you are looking for that bigger sense of community, we do have a community, but it's not people that have been listening for 6 years and are, on some Discord somewhere. Our community is 6 years of listener interviews. And that's a group that you can be part of anytime. Just scroll through, have a listen. And the cool thing is one day you can know that you're going to be a homeowner just like them. So thank you to all of you and congratulations to everyone that came through and now you're in a home. And if you're on your way and you still have specific questions on how to build your personal custom strategy to get there, go to howtobuyahome.com. That's the place you can ask any questions, as well as get a whole bunch of other resources to help you with your home buying journey. And hey, if you do like what you hear here today, please, please, please take 90 seconds and write a review. There is plenty more in our library, lots of information for anything you need to know to get out of the renting rut, even in 2025. You can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuy.com to get started.